Everyone. Welcome to Raw Dogs Radio. I'm your host, Masante Bay. And let's talk about the Hugh Jackson situation. Because apparently people are starting to question Hugh Jackson's ability and decision making, all based on the game against the Ravens in which he pulled Cody Kessler. And I have to admit that was a mistake. And what it showed was Hugh Jackson's frustration with what's going on with the passing game and his quarterbacks, especially with Cody Kessler because he really likes the kid. And as I said in the midseason review, that Cody Kessler is the best quarterback I've seen from the line of scrimmage to 20 yards out. After that, he's horribly inaccurate. Horribly inaccurate. Also, one of the problems with him is that he's very limited. He's very limited because he's only accurate within 20 yards because he doesn't have the arm strength. And someone on Twitter was saying how he worked out and he can throw the ball 10 yards further. Okay, but that means nothing if that's a new ability to you and you don't know how to use it and you're still inaccurate over 20 yards. Arm strength does not equal accuracy. It just equals arm strength. And as we saw in the Ravens game, and as we've seen all season long, in which games where he started and finished, throwing deep down the field past 20 yards is not his strong suit. He is a dink and dunk quarterback. That's why his completion percentage was so high in college. That's why his completion percentage is so high now here in the NFL. That's why his interception to touchdown ratio is so low. He's a dinker and dunker, but that's not Hugh Jackson's offense. You can literally watch the Browns on offense with Cody Kessler playing and know exactly what they're going to throw. They're either going to throw a button hook, a back shoulder fade, or a crossing pattern. All right, or a slant. You already know that. Those are the three main passes that they throw. And eventually defenses catch up to you. This is why we're not scoring points on offense now. Because defenses have caught on. They figured it out. So now they know what to look for. They just keep the safeties over the top and let you try to march down the field without making a mistake with a rookie quarterback and a bad offensive line with no running game, and then they get you in within the 20s, within their 20-yard line. If you haven't made a mistake, they play you in tight. The passing windows become very, very tight, and then they get you. They shut you down. You're forced to a field goal. You're lucky to get touchdowns because if you notice, the touchdown passes that have happened inside the 20-yard line, the opponent's 20-yard line, are on broken plays for the most part, where the passing plays, where suddenly Kessler has to roll out to his left or his right because he's flush from the pocket. So therefore, the wide receiver cuts into the middle of the field and then cuts back and runs the other way. Only a few of them, only two or three of them have been by design. The rest has been on scrambles. So I understand why Hugh Jackson pulled Cody Kessler. He told him, he has been saying in the press conferences as they kept playing all week, hey, we need to push the ball down the field. We need to throw the ball down the field. We need to take shots down the field. That's past 20 yards. And he wasn't doing it. That's why the Browns went from being down 3-0 to 7-3, and then it's 7-6. And then next thing you know, it's 13-7 because the Ravens defense had clamped down on the short passing game. We had no running game, didn't even try to attempt to have a running game. Kessler was not doing what he was told to do. So therefore, he put in Josh McCown. And what that showed you was that Hugh Jackson was frustrated with the kid. Very frustrated, where he just literally said, you know what, sit down. But I didn't make a mistake. I don't care. Sit down. You're not doing what I told you to do. And he said that. Hugh Jackson has said that. Like, hey, if you don't play within the framework of the offense or the defense, or play within the team structure, you'll be standing next to me. He said that. He said that I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he meant that. But benching Cody Kessler in the middle of early in the third quarter, I believe that I can't talk. I believe that was a big mistake. But it's fine. I mean, do understand this is only Hue Jackson's second head coaching tenure. So he's going to make some mistakes that we're not going to like. It's fine. It happens. But overall, the team does show discipline. They do show competitiveness at the outset. But the problem is the Browns' biggest weakness is on defense. Defense, center, right tackle. And on defense, the biggest problem, in all honesty, is the secondary. It's like they got a bunch of guys out from the streets, which literally they do. A bunch of guys from the street out there playing in the secondary. And Joe Hayden is done. At least done here in Cleveland. He needs to go. I don't even see why you have him. The only reason why he's on the roster right now is because of the money. And in all honesty, I see what they're trying to do. They want for Joe Hayden to suddenly snap out of it, stop acting like a guy who took the money and ran, to get back to at least a halfway decent Pro Bowl form, or show that he can contend to be a Pro Bowler again, so that way they can trade him at the contract that he has and feel justified in it. Other than that, they're going to have to eat some money if they plan on getting rid of him. Either way, you're going to eat money. If you can't trade anything for him, you're going to have to cut him, or at least try to change his position to free safety. But in all honesty, from what I can tell, his workout regimen is garbage. Joe Joe Hayden's workout regimen is garbage. You can see it. That's why he keeps getting groin pulls and whatnot. You're not working out right. You're half-assing it somewhere out there on the practice field or in the weight room or whatever. Mentally, he's just not there. He's out there, but mentally, he's just not there. Yes, he's got the 3 interceptions that he has this year has been against the Ravens because Flacco is, for some reason, ever since he popped that Achilles, he's been bad. He's been a below average quarterback. He's now in the middle of the pile. Then yes, Steve Smith has bailed him out. And the defense has bailed him out. Other than that, the Ravens would be horrible. And they are horrible. They just got lucky. They put out a strong defensive effort against Pittsburgh. And of course, they went against the Browns. And then the Steelers lost in a fantastic way to the Dallas Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott. The U, baby? Oh, the O. OSU. Ezekiel Elliott. Wow. Did you see that? He single handedly in the fourth quarter beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in fantastic fashion. But anyway, so now the Ravens have a 2-game lead, but that's going to fall away. So I'm not worried about that. But as far as Hue Jackson is concerned, as far as us dealing with him and being frustrated with him, understand what this year is. This year is a talent evaluation year. You had to strip the roster of players like Joe Hayden, who are just in it for the money. You had to strip the roster of that. Trust me, if he'd have known that Joe Hayden would have had this crappy of a year, he would have been gone too. They would have traded him too early before people found out that, this guy's work ethic is garbage. They would have traded him. He would have been gone. So now your secondary is killing you. You're supposed to be at this juncture 5-4, but your secondary killed you. And of course, I mean, we all know the Cody Parkey situation, but still, your secondary was keeping Miami in the game. Your defensive line, your front seven was doing its job. They were killing, okay, Miami's quarterback, killing them. But on the plays in which he was actually able to bootleg and roll out and get some breathing room without somebody breathing down his neck, Secondary has people running wide open through it. Same thing with Tennessee. Secondary has guys running wide open through it. All right. There's nothing you can do about that this year. This year is a wash. If the Browns go 0-16, I am not blaming Hue Jackson on that. It's a talent evaluation year. Yes, it will be embarrassing. We'll be the second team only in NFL history to go 0-16. But at least you know where your deficiencies are. We knew that by week 8 what the deficiencies were. Really, by week 6, we knew. Secondary, center, right tackle, right defensive end, right outside linebacker. And you need another wide receiver. You need a complementary wide receiver to go along with Corey Coleman and Terrell Pryor. The guys we drafted, come to find out, they're bums. They're bums, but at least you tried. At least you addressed that issue first. You got one gym and a bunch of backups. So hey, you got to go back to the drawing board. You have what did I think they said the Browns have 16 or 17 draft picks next year, and people are worried about, well, do we have the talent evaluators that can find the talent? Personally, I would say yes. I mean, look, we knew looking at Cody Kessler that he would make a fantastic backup quarterback. That was already talked about. He was not slated to be a starter. We were even wondering why he was even drafted. Like, this kid's not an NFL starter. He certainly isn't. He's a guy that can hold down the fort. He can hold down the fort. He can move the chains. You just need a defense to complement him. You need to keep him off his back. Keep him protected. Get a defense that can get at least about 4 to 5 stops a game. You're good to go. You're in position to win a football game if you can do that. Run the football. When we were running the football, we were competitive. We were in games. If you're trying to rely totally on this kid's arm, you can forget it. And with Batonio going down, so did the running game. With the musical chairs at center, so there goes the running game. So you have to evaluate talent this year. That's all I'm looking at it as. That's why I haven't done a game by game by game by game analysis, because I would be sitting here saying the same things over and over and over and over again and talking about rookie mistakes. Where's the fun in that? So I'm not putting this on Hue Jackson. I'm not talking about running Hue Jackson out of town. This is the process. It is a painful process. But at least when you go into the draft next year and possibly free agency, because it looks like you're going to have to sprinkle in some free agents. All right, particularly probably in the secondary. At the offensive line, at least at the offensive line and the secondary, you need to look at some free agents. You have to plug the holes. You know what the holes are now. So now you've got what, 8, 7, you've got 7 more games to go until you can go ahead and take a deep breath, shake this bad season off of yourself, and start plugging the holes. We know we're set at running back. We know we've got some star wide receivers. Terrell Pryor is becoming a star. The kid has actually progressed. He's made the transition, and that's the beauty of him being an athlete. You know your front 7 is really, you have a front 6 now. And that is if you can re-sign Jamie Collins to at least a 4-year deal. 4 or 5 year deal, I would say at least 4 at the most. 5 is stretching it. All right. But if you can re-sign Jamie Collins and you can re-sign Terrell Pryor, which I believe you can, because the Browns were the only team that really actually gave him a shot, that showed that they had some type of interest in him. You can now go ahead and plug the holes. Get the contract signed, then start plugging the holes. It's probably going to take one more, not this draft coming up, but probably the draft after this. The 2018 draft, it'll probably be the draft that you'll actually be like, oh, okay, here we go. All right. Because next year, like I said, when you draft at the end of this year, when you draft the 2017 class, they're going to help plug the holes. It's going to be another talent evaluation year. All right. Because normally around this time of year, you start seeing guys who are young players. They start to get it. They start to click. They start becoming the players you want them to play. Well, we see that some of these players are not the players you want them to be. They're not going to become the players that you want them to become. They're not going to get any better. They are what they are. So next year you have to go through the same thing. You have to keep the ones that are actually showing some promise and recycle. You have to get new players and see if it sticks with them, if they're the type that gets it. And you have to get superstar players. You can't trade down anymore. You can't do that anymore. You can't keep accumulating draft picks and just drafting guys. All right? You can't just draft guys. You have to draft talent. And in all honesty, on defense, when it comes to defense, what you really need, you need an enforcer. You need an asshole in your defense, in your secondary, either on your defensive line, your linebackers, or your secondary, particularly at safety. You need somebody that's going to go in there and try to tear somebody's head off, not just out there on the field, but also on the sidelines. You need a Lawrence Taylor type. You understand? You need a Ronnie Lott type. You need a Mike Singletary type. Okay? You need that type of player on your defense. Somebody that'll get people in line. Not just a player, but you need an asshole. You need an enforcer. Maybe that's what Jamie Collins is. I don't know. I don't hear any stories about. The stories that I hear is that he's not a talker. He talks with his play on the field. But you need a verbal guy. You're going to need a verbal guy. You need somebody who will walk up to one of the corners and be like, "Hey, why did you blow that coverage? Like we called such and such defense. What the hell were you doing?" You know, or grab a safety by the face mask, like, "Hey, we called such and such defense. You're supposed to be over the top. Why the hell are you all the way over the middle or falling for play action fakes?" I never forget. It was 1990 Monday Night Football, Giants 49ers. All right. And the Niners at the time, I think they had just lost to the Rams and the Giants had lost to Buffalo. Or no, the Giants hadn't lost to Buffalo because Phil Simms got hurt in the Buffalo game. But anyway, whatever. It was a match of, the heavyweights. Like, hey, it was already predetermined that these two teams were going to meet in the championship game. And this was week 10, Monday Night Football. And it was just a little slant pass that one of the Giants wide receivers caught. And Ronnie Lott tackled him. It's like, but he called it on third down, it was the first down, and Ronnie Lott glared at Daryl Pollard. He tackled the guy and he just stood up. He was on the guy on his knees and they just looked at Daryl Pollard. And you could tell he was staring, he was burning holes in Daryl Pollard, and Pollard was just standing there like, oops. Like, oops my ass. Oops my ass. You knew what we called. You knew what they was gonna run, and yet you gave it up anyway. The hell is wrong with you? You need that type of player on your defense. Somebody that will keep the other players in line. You can't just be a head coach and hold somebody accountable. And I have a co-worker, he was saying that he wished Hue Jackson would have kept at least a couple of the veteran defensive players on the team just to show these guys how to play it and try to teach them or whatnot. But the problem was that the only veteran that we had on the team that would have done that, all right, was Dante Whitner. But Dante Whitner wasn't going to take a backup role, so we had to get rid of him. So that was probably a mistake too. I don't know. I don't know. But I say be patient. Be patient. Of course, Hue Jackson's not going anywhere. But everybody's talking about Ray Horton, the defensive coordinator, how he's on the hot seat. because the guys, they're not tackling. They're still lacking the basic fundamentals in tackling and not looking into the backfield and just covering their man. Things that by week 4, week 5, you're supposed to train out of them. And they're still doing it here in week 9. Still doing the same thing, still missing tackles, still peeking into the backfield and falling for play action fakes. Now, either those guys don't know what they're doing unless they're functioning illiterates out there. I don't know. I say it's talent, but I don't know. I'm not in Berea. But the whole thing is that he has to start fresh. Those guys in the secondary cannot play football. They just cannot. They just cannot play professional football. Taylor is the only one that's actually out there showing that he's and Buddy Calhoun. They're the only 2 players out there that act like, hey, I'm playing for a starting job. They're the only 2 that's out there playing like they're competing for a starting job here at week 10. They're the ones giving maximum effort. Everybody else, including Joe Hayden, is just out there. And Kendrick, I haven't seen enough of him. But they have to get it together. Now, whether or not they make changes at defensive coordinator, I don't know. I say give Ray Horton another year with a revamped secondary. Give him another year with a revamped secondary and see what happens. See what happens. Let Jamie Collins spend an off season. If you resign him, let him spend an off season. All right, go through training camp and everything in a Ray Horton defense, and let's see what happens. Because you saw Thursday night, he was all over the field. All right, he was all in the backfield. Jamie Collins looked like the Jamie Collins from the Patriots with the blitzes and everything because he's a talent. He's a talent. All right, just like uh oh my God, I forgot his name. Christian Kirksey. They're talent. That's talent at linebacker. You need talent on your defense. You need talent on your offensive line. All right, you need talent in your secondary. You need talent at quarterback. Let's stop, pump the brakes, check the rear and side view mirrors, breathe for a minute, and understand it's not going to happen overnight. It's a process. It literally is a process. All right, that's all I have to say. You all take care. Sante Bay, Raw Dogs Radio. Breathe, people. Breathe. I'm out.